Good evening, everybody. This is Huge Pop and the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. I hope everybody's doing good tonight. Our guest tonight, he debuted in 1997 in Rampage Championship Wrestling. He was trained by Gino the Extreme Harris, Exterminator Harris. Sorry about that. His finisher is a lariat. He is the SICW Classic Wrestling Champion. I'm thrilled to interview the Big Texan, Jim. How's it going tonight?
Well, it was going pretty good until we got the news earlier. So
yeah. So before we go any further, we're gonna just pay respects to some of the greatest. We lost Terry Funk a couple days ago, and then today the news came out that we lost another amazing guy in Bray Wyatt. So I'm just gonna take a pause and I'm gonna count to 10, and then we're gonna go on with the interview. So
yes, sir.
it's always hard, man, to lose a person that followed that you follow and stuff. And I don't want to get all into everything, but I know that you've had conversations with Terry. Can you tell us about the man that you knew that Terry Funk was?
Growing up, Terry was definitely an idol. St. Louis is such a historic town for wrestling. It was the home of the NWA. We had wrestling at the Chase, and Terry, of course, he was an NWA champion. I tell my story a lot about my dad used to sit me and my brother down in front of the TV and wrestling at the Chase, and then old WWF shows was his favorite thing to watch. And that's where I really got, the love of the business, or the bug, as they say, is by watching that with my father. And, watching Terry become the NWA champion. Of course, mine was reruns. I wasn't watching this stuff live. But we watched it all. But WCW, when he came to WWF, when he was in ECW, he was just definitely an idol of mine. Because when you get in the business, sometimes you have to do everything to get seen or get known. So sometimes you do a little hardcore match. You might do a little thumbtack match, or tables. Because when you're young, you want to go over wherever you can, do whatever the promoter wants. And Terry Funk was definitely someone that he can wrestle, and then he can do that hardcore style. So it was best of both worlds. I got to know him because SICW, my home promotion, used to bring him in. As a matter of fact, we did this double stop, basically, where we had two shows back to back. I think it was a Saturday and then a Sunday. We did a Saturday in East Carondelet. That's why I got to meet him. Hung out with in the back with him. Great guy. He loved to. Once he found out you were one of the boys, it don't matter if you were in wrestling a day, a month, a year, 10 years, you were his friend. And he treated everyone in the back like they were comrades. And spending that day with him, that night with him, and then him doing the next show with us the following day. Of course, it was in a different city. It was Cape Girardeau. Man, he was one of the true legends that, some of them you get to meet, and, that old saying, don't meet your idols. He was the exception. Everyone was either a fan of his, became a brother of his if you're in the wrestling. He definitely watched, the whole show, not just what he was part of. And he definitely came to you and talked to you, said, hey, if you would have done this to the arm, it would have looked so much better, and you would have forced him to tap or forced him to do something else. I mean, he was just a great guy to idol.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing your experience with about with Terry Funk. So let's dive right into it. I guess I want to know right away, since I'm a fan, how important are the fans to you as a wrestler, and how important are the fans to the promotion SICW?
Well, they're 100% important. They're important to the wrestlers. Um, when I first started out, I wore a mask. I was a heel. I did the bad things to other wrestlers. But the fans, kept. It wasn't a cheer from the beginning, but slowly they were actually getting behind me. And when they're chanting for you, they're flipping you. They're turning you into that baby face, and that's what eventually happened to me. They loved me so much that there was no choice in the matter. I had to be the fan favorite, and then the run for the belt, and then I'm currently the SICW Classic champion. So the fans is what drives the wrestler. We do this for our fans. I mean, they talk about blood, sweat, and tears. I can't tell you how many bones I broke, how many staples I've got. I mean, my left foot alone has got a steel plate with 6 screws in it holding that foot together. Even I was kind of paralyzed for a good 6 months and out of wrestling for about a year because I took took a body slam from a guy who body slammed me on concrete. And normally when you land flat back, so that whole blow gets distributed through your whole body. But I guess he had a little extra rotation on it, and I hit tailbone first on the concrete. And that immediately I lost the feeling in my legs. And that's what actually took me out. So I was out because I had so much swelling and so much stuff going on in my back that it took forever for it, the swelling to go away, the inflammation to go away. And literally it was like learning how to walk again because, I had to walk with crutches. The first part, I couldn't even walk. I was rolling around in a office chair to get to places. But it's the fans and the love of the business that brought me back. Because there was no doubt in my mind. I was married at the time. I had 2 young kids. I think the third one on the way. And it was still my goal to get healthy again, to get mobile again, and get back into the ring. And I was able to do that. I think it was about a year and a half before I was able to step foot back into the wrestling ring. But along the way, fans emailing me and texting me and on my Facebook, how you doing, champ? When can we see you? How's the legs? It's just all that. And then when I was able to get mobile, I would show up to shows, not to sit in the crowd or anything, because I didn't want to take away anything from the other guys. But I would come into the back and talk, and all my buddies would be like, "All right, so what's the plan? What's your next steps? How can we get you back in?" And it's just it's a family, and the fans definitely do become part of the family because there's some fans that we talk to every single day, and we might not have a show that week, but they're constantly on Facebook. What's going on? Where can we see you? Are you only working for SICW this week? Or and some of them comes with great ideas. Like one of them came up with one of the shirts that I actually sell and promote. So I mean, they very big part of the wrestlers. But then again, they're the big part of the promotion too, because if there weren't fans coming in to see us, there wouldn't be a place for us to go and entertain people. It's the fans that come in and support the promotion, and then the promotion supports the wrestlers. That's a good chain of command there.
Right, that's awesome, man. So obviously you were a fan of wrestling growing up. So who are some of your favorites?
See, I also host a podcast,
Uh-huh.
and we do a weekly podcast. And the first question out of my mouth to all my guests: WWF kid or WCW kid?
Okay.
Uh, and I say this because WWF was focused on kids. You know, Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior,
Yeah.
and even the guys that were just labeled like Earthquake or Duke the Dumpster Drozy,
Right.
where WCW, they were wrestlers. And I didn't know the distinction until I became a wrestler. But as a kid, and I get laughed at sometimes because most of the guests come in and they're automatically WCW, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson. I was the Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior,
Yeah.
Tugboat. Couldn't believe he turned bad and became Typhoon.
Right. Right.
I was that kid growing up. And
Uh,
I talk about it too because, again, I'm going to bring it back to my father. My father swung a hammer all day long. He was a tool and die maker. So he had these huge arms, and he had the Hulk Hogan hairstyle, bald on top, long all the way around. And before it started going gray, it was blonde. So literally, it was like as a kid watching wrestling with Hulk Hogan in the same room with you.
nice.
And, him loving wrestling, put it on me. I loved wrestling. Him buying me all the action figures I wanted. Uh, it was truly Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. I even loved the kind of bad guys, because I know you gotta, for every good guy, there's got to be a heel. So I love the Ravishing Rick Rudes. Jake the Snake Roberts. He was like an in betweener. He was either
Yeah.
good or bad. But I was
Yep.
definitely a WWF kid growing up.
Now, do you still watch stuff today? Did you watch the AEW, WWE today, or are you not a fan of that?
I still watch stuff. I tell you, being a wrestler, sometimes you get burnt out on things,
Right.
especially if like our promotion promotes old school wrestling,
Yeah.
like the stuff you would see in the old NWA days, wrestling at the Chase. But being a lover of wrestling, I would still watch wrestling and then get burnt out on it, and then something triggers you to come back in, something draws you back in. And I hadn't watched wrestling in a few years until this Bloodline Cody Rhodes storyline come out. And because Cody was one of them that would, but when he left WWE, he hit our town, not with the promotion that I'm currently with, but he came with another promotion, just a local fed. And just knowing that a guy who was current was able to go around to these little feds and make a difference. As soon as I heard that he jumped ship from AEW back to WWE, I was like, wait a minute here. There's a story here that someone's not telling. You create or you help create a promotion that's off the ground and running, and you leave it to go back to the WWF or WWE. There's a story that's not been told. So I've been watching to see what turns around with this. Now I haven't watched any wrestling yet this week, so I'm not caught up on Raw. But and I told you in the private background, I've been besides our famous brothers that's passed away, Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. I also had a personal my second cousin actually passed away this week too. So it's not been the greatest of weeks for me personally either.
Right.
But yeah, I watched the current NWA though, and they're actually in town this weekend here in St. Louis. Their 75th anniversary. I don't know if I'm going to catch that. I have no plans to catch it just because I'm booked actually this weekend. So I got to go there. And well, actually, I don't even know if I'm going to be. I'm probably not even going to be booked because of my eye issue that I got. I mean, you guys can see the bandages. So this past weekend, I was in a wrestling match. We have this faction in our promotion. It's Sheik Prater and Attila Khan and a
Oh,
Stephen E. That it's kind of running a little rampant. And I was taking on one of their henchmen, Peyton, and I had Peyton beat. You know, my finisher is the lariat, so I was able to. He worked my arm. I tell you, he worked my arm the whole match, but I still had it in me just to give it one good lariat, and I was going for the 3 count, 1, 2, and then wham, he hits me with this object that he was carrying underneath his robe. You know, he slid into the ring and hit me, stopped the count, so it was automatically DQ. No, not a problem. But he sat there and beat me with it, and Peyton was able to get up, and then it healed me just for the right time for Stephen E. to actually launch a fireball into my eye. And that's why I got this bandage. So I probably won't be wrestling for probably at least a month or so, because the
all right.
doctor said I actually have what they call arc eye.
Okay.
You know, welders get it. People that's dealing with torches get it. It's just like a haze in that eye. Now, some of the skin is burnt, but that's just first degree, so it's not really horrible. It's the eye that is the main thing, and that's actually going to take a few weeks for it to heal and not be hazed on me. So yeah, man, Stephen E has actually ruined me for a while. So that's I know I kind of got off the subject there,
No, but you're gonna come back and take care of Stephen E in that fraction, right?
oh, there's a bunch of us uh, that's trying to get that fraction either broken apart or out of SICW. Right now, Stephen E, you know, he's from overseas, and he's got this wild idea that he's actually going to buy SICW from the promoter Herb Simmons, who you had on here, I think last week,
Yeah.
or the week before. But yeah, so he wants to purchase SICW from him. You know, us wrestlers, there's a lot of wrestlers like, no, that's such a bad idea. I don't care how much money in the world that you can get off this guy and his oil money. But we're not going to have it. We're not going to settle for it. So, you know, whatever we can do to actually change, make sure Herb Simmons doesn't change his mind and try to sell the company. That's where we're going for.
That's right. Well, I did have an opportunity to talk to Herb Simmons. What a great guy! What a great man of knowledge. And I do watch your SICW, and I love the old school feel of. It's almost like Jesse Ventura's outside the ring interviewing you guys after the matches. That brings me back to when I was a little kid watching the WWFs and stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that. So I totally get what you guys are trying to do, and I applaud you guys for all that. Um, you're a popular guy up in St. Louis area. Give us a brief history of how you got started in the sport.
Okay, well, so the love of wrestling was instilled inside of me and since I was a kid. But I was actually managing a quick lube, and a wrestler actually came in.
Okay.
His name was Blade, and he was one that ran the territory system. You know, most of us in the St. Louis area, you know, we go up to Chicago, so all up and down Illinois, up and down Missouri. We dabble into Indiana, dabble into Kansas City, down to Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, you know, that whole, area there. And he just happened to stop in for an oil change. And I was the store manager, so I was helping him out, getting him billed out. And I don't know if you've seen from that promo that I did for you. I'm a big guy.
Right.
And he took a look at me and he goes, "Hey," without even telling me he's a wrestler, he goes, "Have you ever thought about becoming a wrestler?"
Mm.
And I said, "Every day of my life." You know?
Yeah.
And so he goes, "I'm trying to form a promotion of my own. And I'm looking for talent that I can teach and train." And it didn't quite, I mean, I went with that guy. It didn't quite work out with that guy. But one of the places that he was teaching us had another promotion running out of it too. So I was able to jump promotions and actually start my business, start wrestling. But like I said, as a rookie, I wasn't just labeled in the St. Louis. I was, doing the car ride with 6 people, going up to whatever small town we can go to or big town, and try to get some matches under our belt, get our name out there. But yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So, do you have any big influence, any big people that you are influenced by in the business that you know, bounce stuff off of all the time? I know you got a genius. I would say Herb Simmons is a genius.
Oh yeah. Well,
So,
so we actually got a lot of Harley guys that work for us
okay.
at the SICW. Harley. I mean, you can't say anything bad about Harley. Harley
Right.
is the toughest one in the business, um, and he trained everyone just like he got trained. And there's books and stories about how he got trained, and I wouldn't want to do it that way. And even my training was let's try to hurt you so you don't come back the next day. Let's take your money so and then try to get you not to come back. So that's just free money for you. And then you stuck it out. I stuck it out. Kept coming back, going to another promotion, learning their way of how to do it, coming back to the other promotion, going back and forth. I would not quit. Um, and Harley was just the same. He started when he was like 15, 16, maybe even younger, I think. So there was no quitting Harley, and he trained his guys like that too. And in our locker room, we're pretty lucky that we have, his Harley school is still going, and you can find it from World League Wrestling, which is Harley's wrestling promotion. They're still up and running. You can still get trained by the guys who Harley trained. But our promotion, SICW, we actually have about 5 or 6 Harley guys in our locker room, and those are the guys that I would go to
Okay.
bounce an idea off of
Okay.
because they were trained by the best. So
Right. Yeah. So if I or somebody else would walk up to you and say, "Man, I talk about wrestling," what advice comes to mind that helped you become a wrestler that you can share with a person wanting to get into the business?
I tell you what, I would tell you how what I did, and I actually teach now. We have Bob Orton Jr.
Hmm.
has a school that we're associated with, and that's the Ace Academy.
Okay.
And I help Bob teach on Tuesdays. So I'll give you both ideas.
Okay.
You know, coming in the way I did, I just hit the ground running. I would burn through cars, just trying to get the show to show, burn through gas, burn through everything, work a show, didn't get paid for it, got the whole hot dog and a handshake. At one time, I think I even got expired coupons in my pay envelope for, McDonald's or whatever it was. I can't remember, so long ago. Um, but I wasn't really taking care of myself.
Okay.
I was just full throttle. So I wasn't hitting the gym. I was much skinnier back then. So, you're young and dumb, and you just go full throttle. I tell my guys now, um, work out besides in the ring. Go to a gym. Get some muscles behind you. Because when you're constantly hitting the mat, falling backwards or getting slammed backwards, your body goes through a hell of a lot. And it can only come back from so many. And we call it a bump card.
Right.
Wrestlers only have a certain amount of bump cards on them. But if you protect yourself, if you put on, you don't have to be, like a bodybuilder or anything, but get fit.
Okay.
Eat healthy, clean eating. I tell the guys all that all the time. And cardio is a must. You know, if you don't like cardio, you might not like getting into this business. You know, I was explaining to one of my rookies today. Once we found out Bray had passed, you know, Bray was so young. And I am not saying anything, but it doesn't look good when someone's young and passes.
Right.
I've been in locker rooms, and I've been in the business a long time, and I've been in locker rooms. You ever watch the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
No.
Okay, so one point in that movie, Mickey Rourke, who's a legend in the movie, a wrestling legend, he's in the back of a locker room, and there's a guy that opens up a briefcase and says, "All right, I got this, I got that. Whatever you need, I can sell you. Whatever you want to do, I got." You know, I've been in locker rooms like that where any kind of drug you wanted to, you can buy, and it's not like that anymore. The new age, you know, most people are playing video games and stuff like that.
Right.
But I was telling my rookies, I said, that's what's most important. You know, if you are depressed, seek help. You know, if you find yourself addicted to anything, prescription or unprescribed, seek help. You know, this business, it used to be, and it still kind of is, it's a dog eat dog world. You know, everyone's trying to climb to the top. So they're always trying to work past the shoulder injury or the knee that pops out, or, you know, because you hear it from the boys all the time. If I'm hurt and I put myself on the shelf, they got to fill that spot with someone else. So I'm not hurt. I'm going to mask this pain. I'm going to keep going and work. And that's another thing I tell these guys nowadays. Don't do that. You know, understand, yes, you might be losing a month or two. I'm probably going to lose a month, hopefully not two. Uh, but it's a lot better for yourself to heal yourself, get yourself back up to par, and then venture out again and you know, try to climb that ladder. So yeah, if someone just would to tell me off the street, said, "Hey, I want to be a professional wrestler," I would just let them know, "Hey, it's not all what it's cracked up to be. Your body goes through a lot of punishment." You know, and I would let it be known. You know, sometimes you can get hooked on certain substances. Sometimes you you know, drink a lot. So be prepared for people like that. But also, I know so many people who just take cares of themselves. You know, they eat clean. I hate to say your prayers to take your vitamins, but you know, somewhat like that. And never say I'm done. You know, keep. You know, when I first started, the first promotion was, you know, that guy who stopped me at the Valvoline, well, at the oil change place, and got me convinced to be a wrestler. I didn't stay with him. His promotion never got off the ground, so I went to another one. And then that guy, you know, I worked for almost a year under him, and all these other guys that would come through the doors. And when it got time for me to actually have the match to show that
What happened? I can't hear you.
and started working with them and finally made it onto a show and so never quit. If this is your dream, keep scratching and fighting for it. You know?
Awesome. Thank you for that. So I read an article. I read a story that about, you mentioned you wore a mask and then when you got hurt, and but an interesting story was what your father said to you when you were wearing a mask. I read it. I don't want to say what his dad said, but I read something that said your father asked you, "Why wear the mask? Aren't you proud of your last name? Do you want the fans to recognize you?" That was a quote from your dad. How important was that interaction with your dad and your going forward without the mask?
It So, backstory behind that. My father left and went to Kansas City and started working out there. You know, come from divorced parents. I stayed with my mom. My brother actually went with my dad, but eventually, you know, they all moved to Kansas City to start all over, basically. And so my dad would pop back in, you know, and we talked all the time. He was nothing like he didn't want to be a father or anything. And this was once I got much older that he actually left. But he would pop back in, you know, and stay with me for a week or 2 weeks or so. And he would always try to do it when I was booked so he can come and watch me wrestle. Now, most of my career, I was underneath a hood, a mask, and I was part of a tag team called Guerrilla Warfare. You know, it was Army fatigues, black mask. You know, our coat of arms was whoever's got the most money, pay us. We'll hurt whoever you wanna hurt, and you know, belts didn't mean a thing. You know, and my dad, once he retired, he came back home and to live here, and he was got really sick, like 2 months, maybe 3 months into him retiring, and he thought he had pneumonia, so he went to the hospital, and they ran a bunch of tests on him, and actually he had cancer, and so they kept him overnight. He thought still pneumonia, but they're like, no, we got to find out what type you got, and he had pretty much the worst type. It's a long M word. I done forgot it, but he had cancer in his blood cells. So wherever his blood traveled, he can actually develop cancer in that spot. So eventually, he had cancer everywhere. It was in his bones, his pancreas. I mean, it was just everywhere, and he was taking everything you can to survive. You know, even the stuff that were experimental. And it was in this time frame that he came to a show, and it was actually before the show even started. I pulled up. He was already there waiting, and we had this conversation as I was getting my bags out of my car. And he goes, you've always been a heel. You always loved people hating you, but they hate Texan. They don't hate you. No one, if they ever knew who you were, they wouldn't hate you. I've always the fun-loving kind of guy, and he told me, he goes, wouldn't you want to wrestle without the mask? And you've been doing this for so long. Wouldn't you want to be known as the person wrestling? And that kind of hit me. And so yeah, I immediately went to the promoter. I said, look, hey, I want to lose the mask. And as the promoter, that's money right there. The guy who's been in the mask for so long tells
Right.
you that he's wanting losing it. Let's work something together,
Right.
And so this match that I had was a career versus mask. And, the guy I was wrestling, his name was Gary Jackson. And, he has been everywhere. He's worked for the WWF. He's worked for WCW, worked for the NWA. If there was a place, he worked it. And hopefully he'll be your next SICW guest.
Yes.
So I actually became friends with Gary, and I'm very close to Gary to this day. So, I don't want to say that I lost that match on purpose, but I probably didn't give it my all. And who would want to take the career from Gary Jackson?
Right.
Someone who's been there. And so, needless to say, I lost the mask, and immediately it was a switch. As soon as the crowd knew who I was, the cheers started from that day.
Wow.
They immediately took to me. Immediately, my whole character just turned a 180. Um, and I rode that for a while, and eventually my father passed away. Uh, and I don't know if it was the depression sinking in or what, but I literally had my father's wake slash funeral because he wanted to be cremated. So we all did it in one setting. The very next day, I wrestled, and I easy match, and then I grabbed the mic and I said, my father is the one that wanted me to not wear the mask and come out to the public. My father's now gone, and I put the mask back on, and I wore that mask up until COVID hit. When another person who was like a father figure to me, I'll have to say I got two other father figures. One is my promoter. 50 years in the business, you look up to some guys like that,
Absolutely.
But my other father figure was Larry Matisek,
Okay.
and Larry was the referee for the Wrestling at the Chase. He worked very close with Sam Mushnick through that whole promotion when Sam was the NWA president. But Larry, I actually lived about a mile down the street from Larry, and he would hint to me, you go by the Big Texan, because even as guerrilla warfare, I was still the Big Texan.
Okay.
And he goes, you go by the Big Texan, get away from these, camouflage gear and the mask, and let's get you back to your roots and become, a Texan again. Texans should be strong and proud. And COVID was hitting, so no wrestling promotion was open unless you're WWE.
Right.
And in that process, Larry ended up passing away. So now I had Larry passing as well. And so my third father figure, my promoter Herb Simmons, he come to me and said, I know how your dad felt, you not wearing a mask. He was proud of that. I know how Larry felt. You should be a proud Texan. Get away from this. So COVID gave me that time to sit back and actually think,
Right.
and got me out of the deaths, and because when your father passes away, and I don't know, no, yours is still alive. You're talking to me about it.
Yeah.
My my father was very young. I mean, he didn't retire from age. They medically retired him because he actually almost died where he worked. And he was just lucky that there were some people there that saved his life.
Right.
And so they medically retired him.
Wow.
And then his retirement only lasted a year because I guess it was his time to go. Because once miracle happened I guess that miracle happened to give me a year with him. Because I tell you, that year with him, we went to Florida. I have three boys of my own. All of us men got together. We went to Florida, did some stuff that he wanted to do. He wanted to go to the space station where the launches happen. We were able to explore all that. I wanted to go to New Orleans, which if you ever drove from one side of Florida to go to the other side, that's almost like a day right there.
Yep.
So we added to our vacation just so we can do something he wanted and something I
Nice.
wanted. I am so lucky that I had that.
Yeah.
But again, going back to all these talks that I've had with my mentors, I was like, let's go back to the roots. I am now the big Texan. I come normally with a black shirt, cowboy hat, my I probably only one of a few that wrestle in blue jeans, because it's really kind of complicated to wrestle in jeans.
I bet.
But I wear chaps to the ring. I got a branding iron, big T that I come with. So I've been the big Texan, this run of the big Texan, I guess, since the promotion started opening up from COVID. So somewhere in 22, so slightly over a year and a half, maybe.
Gotcha.
But I tell you, I've been having the most fun because the fans are just so much behind me, and they stop me everywhere. Even when I come in through town where the show is, if I eat somewhere prior to going to the show, fans are stopping me there. I went to the grocery store just to get some quick stuff because you don't want to eat a whole bunch of junk food, when you're hitting different cities.
Right.
And someone at the grocery store recognized me. Actually, two people at the grocery store
Nice,
recognized me.
nice.
So it's just it's crazy. I definitely got the fan support behind me right now. So I wouldn't ask for anything much, anything better than that.
That's awesome. So in 2015, well, up to even today, SICW has the Bruiser Brody Memorial Battle Royal. It's a big event for SICW.
Yeah, man, it even became bigger last year. Well, this year.
Yeah, something like I was told. What did Herb Simmons say? 40 or 50.
It was supposed to be 50.
Yeah.
There was one who had to back out. And that was Black. I can't remember his name because he's a fellow Texan too. I'm going to get shunned here, but Black Bart. Thank you. Memory's clicking. His health isn't the best right now. As a matter of fact, I think they just had a show in Texas for him to try to get some his medical bills paid. So he had to back out. But JBL, another fellow Texan, came through, and literally everything that JBL made by signing autographs or taking pictures, all that money that he made, he donated to Black Bart, to help him out. But yeah, so and there was another one. I think they wasn't able to make it, but he was one of the local legends who also made it to WCW, and his name was Ron Powers. Because you can look him up, and there's him versus the Giant in WCW, or him versus Lex Luger and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know why, but he wasn't able to make it. So 48 legends was in this place, but it all started because Herb Simmons, he had a love for Bruiser Brody, and after Brody's passing. I think it was a few years after that him and Larry decided to have this. So every year they do a Bruiser Brody Battle Royal, and if you win it, Barbara Goodish, which is Bruiser Brody's widow, she comes into town for this event, and she hands you the trophy, and you actually carry that trophy the whole year until the next Battle Royal, where you have to defend it, of course. There's only been one person, and it was the person that won it this year. His name is Bobby D. He's the only one who's ever won it twice. But I was one of them that was actually able to win it. I won it back when I was in my Army fatigues, but without the mask. So I was still kind of in the good graces of all the fans and stuff.
Right.
And so it was great because Bruiser Brody, like I said, once you switch from being a fan of wrestling into becoming a worker, that's when you start watching other promotions like the WCW or the older NWA shows. And then you watch the WCCW in Japan. And, you can't watch any of that without watching a match from Bruiser Brody. And so I definitely became a fan of Bruiser Brody. And to win that trophy and to be given it Barbara Goodish. I mean, hands down, that was probably one of the definite highlights of my life. But this year's the May show, which turned into a fan fest with the 48 legends. That was the night that I was actually able to win the SICW Classic Championship.
Nice.
So another highlight in my life there, winning that belt. And it took me almost a year to get in line, to get everything lined up to even be in that spot. Because the guy who had it was Attila Khan, part of the whole Stephen E. empire. But
Right.
if you ever watch any of his matches, I don't know if you're allowed to cuss on this, but
Yeah,
he's
go
a badass. I mean, he's just like he's a mix of a couple guys, but I can't think of his name. The guy that Bruiser Brody fought a lot. Do you? Oh my God, I can't.
Bruiser Brody was a little bit before my time. I was.
Oh, okay.
So.
Abdul the Butcher.
Yes.
See that?
Okay.
The wheels do work. It's just a little slow. Abdul the Butcher. So he's just like that, where Abdul would hide a utensil, normally a fork, somewhere on his body where the ref can't find it. But somewhere during the middle of the match, somewhere, that fork comes out and you end up getting busted open and beat to death with it. But so Attila's like that. And me and him would battle one way or another, either singles or in a tag or an elimination tag, because we did that too. But it all came ahead on this May show, the Fan Fest. I had a special referee in the match, which was James Beard. He's another legend from Texas. We had, all the Texas legends in the house: Stan Hansen,
Wow.
JBL. It was just like all the stars were lining up, and I was able to. It was even a Texas death match, which Dory Funk actually called and explained the Texas death match to our TV viewers when, if you ever catch. Well, you said you watch it, the SICW YouTube.
Yeah.
So he's actually on the phone explaining how his father was the one that came up with that match, and explained that it didn't matter how many pins you had. It's just that if you pinned a guy, they had 30 seconds to stand back up and start all over, or if they didn't stand back up, you're declared the winner. And I hit. Me and Tilla fought like cats and dogs in that match, and chairs, forks, branding irons, they were all used. But I sealed the deal because I used to come out with a cowbell and rope, and I wrapped that around my arm and gave it one final lariat with the cowbell in the center, and just was able to knock Attila down for the 30 seconds, and then I was awarded the championship.
Well, that must have been a big deal with JBL and all those guys, and at a Texas death match. So that must be one of the biggest highlights of your career.
Oh, by far is the biggest, because I don't know if you ever been to a show that have legends. Most of the time, the legends sign autographs before the show, then they go in the back, and then they come out during intermission, sign some more, and then you don't see them again.
Right.
Man, we had legends in the audience. They actually came out from behind their tables and sat down in the audience to watch. It was, to have everyone watching you and be interested in your match behind you, because the crowd just went crazy when they realized Attila couldn't get up. It was probably the highlight of my life, wrestling wise.
I watch the XIW. I watch that promotion down here in the Panhandle of Florida. That's where I live, and in Panama City, there's a group called XIW, Extreme Impact Wrestling, and I've had the opportunity to meet. I can't remember his name. ECW ref, old ECW ref.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Is it Anzo or
Yes, Alfonso.
Fozzie or
Fazia.
something?
Yes, I
Yeah,
met him. But other than that, they bring guys in like Chase Stevens, and they're bringing in Austin Aries. Just signed a year contract with them, so I'm excited about that. But
yeah,
legend wise, it's Ben Alfonso is who I've met that I would say is a legend.
yeah.
So
Well,
now
I
Herb,
tell you, being a kid, one of my first matches, I was probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years in the business. My time frame, I really can't. I should have kept back a better record. And I've had a few concussions along the way, so I blame the steel chair shots that I used to take. But I know I was very new to the business when I was able to wrestle my first legend, which was Greg the Hammer Valentine.
wow,
Yeah, and I tell you, we are both, good guys, babies. Not a heel boner. Well, Greg can go either way, and he went the other way on me because we were talking about before the show having this nice clean match, and he was probably ribbing me the whole way because he told me and him what we were going to do, and then how he thought it was going to end or whatever. I mean, we all knew he was going to stretch me,
yeah,
but we go out there, and as soon as the bell rings, nothing. Everything that he talked about, it was like he just threw it out the window and just locked up with me, and we just, you know, rolled it off.
nice.
Yeah, but Greg the Hammer Valentine, Tony Atlas, Bob Orton Jr. Before I started actually helping him with his academy. Those are just some of the legends that actually worked with me personally. And of course, Bob still works with me personally because I should have said him earlier when you were talking about people I talk to because I see Bob every week, and to have a Hall of Famer that you can bounce ideas off of, and Bob is still a guy who actually gets up in the ring. So
Wow.
say we have like 12 or 14 students. I can't watch over everyone. He can't watch over everyone. So we kind of take, people on our own sides and then kind of rotate them through.
Right.
But if Bob is still sharp enough to where if he doesn't like something that I showed a person, like getting into a particular hold, he'll cut me off and let me get up in there. And he'll get up in the ring. He goes, "This is how I want you to actually get his arm locked into this position."
Nice.
So I mean, hands down, who wouldn't want that on a weekly basis?
Absolutely, man. I
Yeah,
when I was talking to Herb Simmons, he mentioned that he'd like to come back on the show on a Huge Pop Wrestling podcast, and one of the people that he's trying to get to come on with him is Bob Orton, the senior. So hey man, I'd be willing to have anybody. I mean, that'd be just to listen to stories must be amazing.
yeah. So the thing about Bob, you you might say, "Hey, what'd you do at WrestleMania 4 or 5?" He might not be able to tell you exactly what he did, but if you tell him who he wrestled, he'll be able to tell you the exact match. Sometimes who won, what the time was, and he is so detail oriented when you trigger him.
Wow.
And it's great. And this guy is, when I talk to him, like I got on a Japanese. Sometimes, me personally, I'll start watching a show and get hooked on it. So I was hooked on this Japanese wrestling for a while, and I started talking to Bob about it because Bob worked in Japan for a while.
Right.
And so he was able to tell me, how much he was making a week, who he was able to wrestle,
Nice. Nice.
and just the stuff. And my promoter always tells it. Um, uh, now I can't even think about it. Oh, mouth shut, ears open.
Yep.
And that I totally live my life like that when it comes to wrestling because you learn so much just by talking to people. My best conversation with Harley Race, his organization, our organization always worked together or he always come in to see Herb or see Larry because he was still friends with Larry Matisek. And there was a time when there's this table in our locker room, and he was sitting at the table, and some of the guys were scared to to come up and talk to him. I mean, I'm not saying, hey, how you doing? Shake my hand, please take a picture with me. I'm saying sit down and actually talk to the guy. And I love reading, and I love reading biographies. So I was able, and I love watching biographies, everything with it comes to wrestling. And so I was able to sit down. We sparked up a conversation. He was telling me about his Japan days and how it was his favorite time to work, because when you worked over there, while your match was going on, the crowd was silent. So you couldn't tell if you were doing a good job, if the heel was getting over, or the baby was getting over. But if you were a true worker, you knew what you were doing was either good or bad.
Right.
And at the end of the match, they were either going to stand up and cheer you or boo you out of the building. And he loved that, because that is a true worker, and knowing his craft, and still getting what he wanted throughout the match, but at the end of the match. And we are carrying on this whole conversation. And, slowly as this conversation is going on, more and more wrestlers are sitting down at this table, listening to me and him going back and forth. It's the stuff like that you can't get anywhere else. You can't learn unless you talk to the legends. And as of this week is proof. We lost Terry Funk, true legend. Bray Wyatt, a legend in the current days, with a legendary family. When you have the opportunity to have legends in your locker room, or you go to a fan fest as a fan, I know sometimes it's $20 here, $20 there, $30 there. Spend the money, get your autograph, get that picture, spend some time talking to that legend, because what he has is priceless. And you never know, like yesterday, Terry Funk passing away, when they're going to go, and we just lost him. So,
and I know I met the guy behind me, that picture, that's JBL and Ron Simmons.
Oh, yes.
They were at a Pensacon last year, and everybody's in line to see Jungle Boy and all the younger guys. And man, I took the opportunity just to ask them just questions from the fans' perspective, and they said, sit down out here. They sat between them, and they were just going back and forth, talking. We probably talked for 20 minutes, and it was, I got the picture. I did it, and it was, but I listened to what they had to say, and I'm like, man, geniuses.
Oh, I tell you, there was a picture of that fan fest where out in the hall, they had places for people to sit. Out in the hall, it was JBL. It was Gerald Briscoe. It was J.J. Dillon. And I want to say Tugboat was out there. But they were all having a beer, and they were all sitting around in a circle and telling stories. And who wouldn't want to be a fly on the wall?
Absolutely.
When you have those four, or any, 48 Legends was there. But just to have those four in a room where everyone was just passing by, because it was in the hallway.
Yeah.
God, be a fly on the wall and hear all the conversations. I mean, I heard a lot of conversations that night and the night before leading up to it, because, the bars closed pretty late. And when they did close, we found other places to go. So I was definitely able to hang out with some legends and hear some of those stories. This is the best part about being a wrestler, is being able to see your idols. And I've not. Well, I take that back. I've met only one wrestler in my lifetime that was not worthy of. And it was a bad part of his lifetime, because he was going through some alcohol stages So I'm not even going to say his name because the next time I meet him might be a great time. But I've been doing this over 20 years, and only one time did I ever have a problem with a legend. But everyone else has been great. And I've hung out with Harley Race, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan. I've hung out with them all. So
Yeah.
I mean,
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So I do have kids that I foster kids, and before it gets too late in the conversation, they have some questions for you that's real quick. Um, so they ask them, what's your favorite food?
my favorite food.
Yeah.
Well, my wife makes this. I don't even know what you call it, and it's probably not the healthiest thing in the world. She loves Italian food, so anything with noodles, she's like the best chef at. But there's the name of it escapes me. But she has this noodle dish that she cuts up sausage and even bacon and even steak and mix it in with these noodles. And of course, celery. You got to throw a little bit of healthy stuff in there.
Right.
Celery and onions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But oh my God. And then she makes this killer beanless chili. Texan, you gotta have some chili in your life, and I love beans, so I love that style too. But she makes this beanless style
Nice.
to die for as well.
Nice. TV show. Favorite TV show.
Man, I love Heels. If
Okay.
you guys ever catch that, it's
Yep.
about wrestling.
Yep.
So I'm always watching that. I love Survivor shows too. So like Naked and Afraid or Alone.
Yep.
Anything that teaches you how to survive in the woods or any type of place with just sticks, your bare hands, and anything like that. I love watching those type of Survivor shows.
My wife is currently watching something on Mars.
Is it the celebrities that go to Mars?
Yeah.
I tell you what, I have my middle child just went past his boot camp for his Air Force. And he told me, he goes, watch these clips off of YouTube, and I'll kind of tell you how my 6 weeks or 6.5 weeks, I guess, of boot camp goes. He goes, it's kind of like that. And then that show came on, and I watched like the first 15 minutes of it, and it was nothing like what he had me watch, and I knew it right away. It was, it was made for celebrities.
Right. Well, then another guy. What's your favorite snack?
Honestly, I love a lot of fruits. So, I keep bananas well stocked in the house. So yeah, anything that I can eat that's a little bit healthier than just reaching for a donut.
Yeah. Does getting hit by a chair hurt?
Oh my gosh, yes. So like I said, I've been knocked out a few times. I've been concussed. One time, it's weird story here. I was in a tag match, and I was suplexing one of my opponents, and his head hit the mat, came back up, and then smacked me in my eye. Wow. So it wasn't even a chair shot. And as soon as he hit, I was out. And it was a tag match. So those other three opponents, the two opponents and my partner, started, going at it, buying me some time. And eventually I wake up in the ring and realize what I'm doing. Like, why am I in a ring? And I was able to get cleared up and finish the match. But I've definitely wrestled, we proud ourselves on hard, old school wrestling. So, back in the day, before they did the whole concussion protocol, there was no trying to block it. You were a man and you took it to your head, and I took a lot of chair shots. And that's why I said the hamster's in there rolling, but sometimes he's not as fast as he used to be.
Right. So I've noticed that, you talk about your lariat that you use, and you got a hell of a chop that you do. I mean, there's right now we got Sheamus, Gunther, Drew McIntyre. Those guys I would not want to. That the way Sheamus's chest looked after that one match with Drew. Holy cow! Now,
I had.
so
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
so other than yourself, is there anybody in SICW that has a better chop or a good chop?
All right, so I'm not going to say they have a better chop, but there's a guy named Sheik Prater who throws one hell of a chop too. Um, yeah, and Bobby D, he has this double chop that you don't see on WWE right now, but he throws this one chop open handed, and before you can even hold your chest, there's another hand coming that way. And so it's like a bow, So yeah, he's got a pretty good one. But everyone who likes it the old-fashioned way, they always throw a chop in there somehow. And I think my hand, I got a pretty big hand, and I've had some opponents send me pictures of their chest the next day, where you can actually see clearly the whole outline of my hand, and some of them even fingerprint, marks. But I throw it to hurt them. I throw it to get the biggest sound I can get. And, I love hearing, damn, your handprint was on my chest for a week, or, that's satisfaction in my book.
Yeah. So I love SICW, and there was a quote that I found that I want to just read the quote, and I want to get your input on it. The quote was by Herb Simmons. The best old school wrestling in USA, SICW, is a descendant of St. Louis wrestling at the Chase and the St. Louis, Missouri, St. Louis Wrestling Club. The NWO was founded by the late Sam Muchink, and got that name wrong, and ran successfully for 40 years. Herb Simmons learned how to promote and book with Larry Matzik and Muchnik. Herb has worked with everyone from Ted DiBiase to Bruiser Brody. Do you stand tall by that quote? Is that the definition of what SICW stands for?
Yeah, we're definitely old school. You can. I mean, I'm sure Herb told you last week or so, but and me being able to hang out with Larry Matisic and being able to hang out with Herb, two of the great guys, and me again closing my mouth, opening up my ears.
Yeah,
I was able to hear all the stories. Sam Muchnick, when there was a problem in the NWA, because it was a territory system. So when two territories fought against each other, Sam Muchnick was the president. So he had to get that solved, squash it,
right.
And everyone respected him. He always wore a suit and tie. And Herb took that from Sam. Everyone respects Sam. Respects Herb. If you guys come up with a pay, your pay's there. If he says you're booked, you're booked. You can go to that show. And there's been plenty of times when you go, and I've done it. You go talk to a promoter over the phone. He promises you this and that. You get there, and this and that turns into nothing and expired coupons. So I've been burnt plenty of times. But there's not a day that I don't see Herb that he's not in a suit and tie.
Oh.
He says goodbye to every person in the audience after the show. I mean, the legends actually for this past May show, some of the legends actually called Herb and said, "Hey, why ain't I on here?" So when you don't have to call them and they call you,
right. You must be doing something right.
You're doing something right, and you got the respect.
Absolutely. Now, last thing I can want to talk about is I hear about Herb shared stories about the Chase. What are your experience? Do you have one experience that you can share from working in the Chase? Have you been at the Chase?
See, so I'm like right in the age gap that wrestling at the Chase was over, but I was able to watch the reruns, and they every 10 years or 15 years they'll do a new throwback to the wrestling at the Chase where they start showing them again. and they make a new story about it. And now the NWA is back. You know, they've been here the last 3 years wrestling at the Chase, and they're back this weekend too. And we are actually, Herb is bringing us to the Chase this year, where we're going to wrestle there.
Nice.
So that's going to be that question that you have. Yeah, there's so many wrestlers that I watched there. And last year, I was able to go to the NWA, go into the same place, watch the show there, just how it was on TV. Because the same chandeliers that you could see from back in the day,
Wow,
it's still there.
still
They
there.
didn't really change that room at all, because that's how much that room is such legendary. You know, it's got a legendary status to it. They didn't
Right.
want to touch it. And so it's actually going to be my honor to actually wrestle there this year.
Wow.
But some of the people that would come through there, like Kevin Von Erich, you know, he was actually born in Illinois. Collinsville, Illinois is where they stayed. You know, Belleville is my hometown. You know, it's where I stayed growing up. And it's just like 10 minutes away from where he was born, you know, or grew up when he was over in St. Louis. So many people from wrestling at the Chase used to come to Belleville. Andre the Giant, one of his favorite bars was here in Belleville. And after every show that he was at, he would come there. It was the English's bar. And wrestling has been around in this area for a long time. And this area loves wrestling. And sometimes maybe a little too much, because there's a lot of promotions just in this local area. And so as a wrestler, you got to know which ones to work for, which one is going to get you places that you want to go, which one's going to pay you what you feel you deserve.
Right.
And you got to work for those ones that are legitimate. And Herb Simmons, like, if a legend is calling you saying, hey, put me on this card, you know you're in the right spot.
Absolutely. So, when is that opportunity for you this year? What month?
I want to say it's in October. I want to say
Okay.
it's like last week of October, right before Halloween.
So I think I mean, I'm just going to run this by you. I would like to do a few shows in December. I have some ideas, and one of the ideas I have is, because I do have Mr. Gary on my show next week. And if I can get a couple of you guys from SICW in December as a year end show to see how you what the last part of 2023 is happening to you guys, I'd love to pick your brains. And
Man, I'm sure we'll all jump for it, because that Wrestling at the Chase show, Bret Hart is going to be there.
Yeah.
He's the one that's going to be the host.
Okay.
We got this one show that we've been doing every year. It's the Missouri Athletic Club. And Herb said it's the closest thing to Wrestling at the Chase, because you go into this building that has got all these baseball players, hockey players, and they're here to watch, and lawyers and doctors, all these fancy people, and they're there to watch wrestling. And it's lightly dimmed. The women that are there are, you know, dressed to the nines. The guys are all in suits. They're smoking cigars, drinking the whiskey or whatever, and then we come out and wrestle. You know, it's like walking into the past when you wrestle there. And that night, Jake the Snake Roberts is going to be there.
Wow.
Jimmy Hart, which is like, Jimmy Hart comes through our promotion probably 6 times a year. Him and Herb are like best friends, just about. But then Hacksaw Jim Duggan is also going to be there that night. So it's a constant flow of legends coming in and out of SICW.
That's awesome. So I just want to thank you, Big Texan, for coming on the show. I thank you for taking the time out of your night and sharing your stories. There were some amazing stories. I didn't even have to ask my questions, and it was so. I really, I appreciate your storytelling and your what you went through and how your wrestling career has been evolving. I just love that you took the time for us. So my last thing I want to know is if you could tell the fans in your own way, and I don't care how you do it, where they can find you, how they can get, if you have merch, I don't know if you have merch or anything like that, what they can do. And
Well,
I'll let you close the show.
sure.
But I want Huge Pop Wrestling fans, thank you so much. I'm going to turn over the mic to Big Texan, and he's going to end it. After he's done talking, I'll play the exit song, but don't go anywhere. Stay in the bottom. Don't log off.
All right, not a problem.
Thank you guys for coming in. I'm going to turn it over to Big Texan right now, and he's going to close it up.
All right. So I'm on all the socials. If you search, my real name, legit, my real name is Jim Hoffarth. H-O, man, I can't even pronounce, spell my own, Hoffarth. If you look through that, if you type in that name with the Big Texan, I'm going to come up in anything, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, the X, which was Twitter. And then I also run a podcast, the Squared Ring podcast. We do it weekly, and it's based on SICW wrestling, or if something dramatic happens within that week, we try to cover it, give our opinions on it, just like you do. But yeah, Jim Hoffarth, Big Texan, just throw that in a keyword somewhere and you'll find me. And you can always come to a SICW show, and I sell T-shirts and just about everything, pictures, whatever you think of. I sell these little bells too. Kids love those little bells. But yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. It's been an honor, a pleasure. I love doing these, and I'd love to come back on. That's all I got to say.
Awesome. Extreme.